The conversation continues to be about is which techniques work, what is the what styles work, what approaches work, whose sense of things are better. And then what happens with that is it never stabilizes. It'll go into a department for a while until it shifts out because of issues with the particular system or approach or person, or the structure within the administration shifts out. The DT lieutenant, the commanders, different policies, and it shifts out, and then it goes nowhere. And that's kind of been the pattern. So I don't even want to enter that conversation. I don't want to be a part of that conversation. Um, I don't think that's the right conversation to have. So what I think is that jiu-jitsu brings about, and I think most people would agree, is if officers train under pressure, physical contact, as far as passive and active resistance, they're ultimately going to be calmer, and they're going to bring that calm to the different scenarios that change and evolve, and they're going to adapt a little bit better because they're calmer. So it boils down to better decision making. So what I like to look at police jiu-jitsu from is a perspective of decision making, how to make better decisions. And through training, this implies a couple of things. So under pressure, the body's not going to execute any kind of skill. It's going to execute a state, which is what the whole point of jiu-jitsu and wrestling for cops is. And they're in the right direction. It's the right step, but it ends up being one step and then another step in the same step of the ladder, same step of the stairwell. It never goes beyond that. And it shifts out, and it shifts a little bit. And the one universal in that, which again is 1% to 3% maybe of the profession and the industry, is they typically would make better decisions for the most part. And there's truth to that. So what we do with police jiu-jitsu is we drill for that. We have specific drills that are very safe, and they're proven very safe, that can increase the pressure from the shallow end of the pool to the deep end of the pool in a regulated, controlled fashion, which gets people used to that within an academy setting. Pleasures of shooting outside. Got hit with some technical difficulties. So what I was saying is, so the states are where we're after. Decision making is what we're after. But here's the thing. You're not going to, like we already discussed, you're not going to get the officers to go train 2 or 3 times a week to get that. So what you can do as far as overall is build a uniform system, which is what we have with ISR Matrix Police Jiu-Jitsu, which takes into account decision making. And with that, we have the OODA loop, and I'm not going to break that down too much. You can look it up if you don't know it and you're looking from the outside. Within the industry, we all know what that means. So along with the with OODA loop, we have Hicks law, which is too many options creates issues unless you're training within many options. And what many options ends up being is you yourself figuring out a small amount of those decisions and choices and options that you make under pressure. Everybody's got a game, right? So we offer a minimal curriculum, which we discussed already, which is the ABCs. And it's 3 phases, and it's 3 techniques in each phase. And each phase has a strategy behind it: getting in, intercepting, getting control, stabilizing, and then resolving depends whether you're standing on the ground and what level of force you were at, right? So the keeping it simple is paramount. That way they never have to operate beyond that idea and having Hicks law become an issue. So Hicks law has Miller's law, which is under duress, most people will be able to make 3 to 5 decisions, tops 5 if they're really trained. 3 is good, and 1 if they're kind of code black and they're frozen because of the pressure being greater than they can handle. So when we do everything's in 3, 3, and 3, we're staying within Miller's law to prevent Hicks law, to better our improvement of our OODA loop, getting inside the OODA loop of what's occurring, right? So in that, we train with this aspect called chunking, which is if we can get 2 or 3 things that are oriented to about the same goal, and we teach them as one, those 2 or 3 things, again, sticking to Miller's law, will become one thing. So intercept is one thing, stabilize is one thing, resolve is one thing, and ISR is one thing, meaning the way the body's handling it, it's bypassing cognitive. It's going right into association and right into autonomy. It makes the decision because all they've trained is a small amount of tactics to deal with the vast majority of what they're going to deal with. And that keeps them from freezing, which calms them down, which makes them make better decisions. So when we send this across the department, even in service, right away, the material we're working has a high percentage of use. We already discussed that. There is best ways to control limbs, there is best ways to control torso, and there is best ways to control a grounded body. And those have to be mechanical and not pain related. Not pain compliance at all, but mechanical compliance. And then we have that in place. So if you have a system that is uniform and always the same and is trained always the same, you're gonna maximize the amount of repetitions that are occurring. And then it's easier to start increasing the pressure because you don't have to wait as long. And the more pressure you give people within this decision-making cycle, because it's not a tree. If you go to resolution and you lose it, you go back to stabilizer. If you lose the stabilizer, you go back to intercept, and it just resets, which is the other thing. If you do lose your place, it's a reference point to return to, both strategically and tactically, as the same thing. And this is what's going to make your state of being much more calmer when all you've trained is how to handle most things that most work all at once. You've got the tactics that most work for most things. Again, this is passive and active resistance. If it escalates beyond that, you're already in a position to better decide what to do from there. The decisions are being made instantly, and wrong decisions are very costly. And then it's because in our approach, it's the system that's the unit, not the individual. And the entire market right now is built on the individual. It's about making individual cops better at decision making randomly, because they're all going to be training differently. They're all going to be approaching this, again, 1 to 3%. So they're all going to be a little bit different heights, different sizes. This never crosses over into court systems. This never crosses over into anything else. For example, when we watch video of use of force, we know exactly what we're looking at. Everybody does that's watching it, because we actually have a defensive tactic system. Yes, an actual objective defensive tactic systems, when we're seeing what needs to be done, where it needs to be done, and then where it's utilized and how it's utilized, and how correctly or incorrectly it's being utilized. And then it also explains what went right and what went wrong, and then how it self-corrected or didn't. And we can address that all from a uniform sense. That's what's missing in law enforcement. So when I look through my notes, I can break this down into many different ways, but that's the gist of it. It's an action-oriented framework that includes decision-making, and you can't have that unless you have Hick's Law, Miller's Law, chunking all in place to help your OODA loop, and that's the physiology, and that's what's going to keep us calm. So when we get into things like Redman or any kind of what we used to call pressure testing, it's not, it's an evaluation. We create scenarios of different degrees of complexity with different degrees of pressure, and then we watch what the recruits are doing and how they're doing it. And we bring in other variables that come in, whether they're alone or partners with them, or partners going to get there in a certain amount of time. And we get into, did they identify themselves? Did they give proper verbal commands? Did they try to de-escalate? All of that is in place in every scenario, even when it goes hands-on. And then when it goes hands-on, how that mutates, because we have that kind of programmed into what we do, that'll be a separate video. We can then monitor how they do. And then on the debriefs that we do after every Redman with them, then in the debrief, they themselves are better at articulating right after the fact, no matter how stressed they are, about what occurred, because it's all connected. Their decision-making, policy, the law, legality, what they saw, it's all in place. And it's easier for us to then see how they did in the debriefs. And then when we debrief the whole class for that scenario, they each get to see each other's footage. And it's all uniform in what they're supposed to be doing. That is non-existent outside of what we're doing here at Mesa Police Department, and is slowly hitting every department in Arizona. And they're starting to recognize this is the missing link. So I'll start with this, and then as the questions come, I'll start building on it. But my goal